I wish to speak to Amendment 19 on the Just Transition. Minister, I come from a county that's bearing the brunt of a just transition. You felt the need to only mention transition once in a 7,000 document. And let me tell you that that's a huge insult to the people of the Midlands. So I suggest you go back and revise this. I also find it absolutely shameful that you have rejected amendments from all of opposition that put forward very constructive amendments and reached out and tried to be collaborative. It's absolutely appalling, and it reeks of elitism and the fact that you don't care, and the real arrogance of this government. And let me just remind people that this government wouldn't be doing what they're doing without, or the Green Party wouldn't be doing what they're doing without the full support of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. It's absolutely shameful. I was in this chamber with my colleagues in the Rural Independent Group last year, and we pleaded with the Minister to accept amendments in terms of the Forestry Bill. She refused to accept those amendments. As a result, we have absolute chaos continuing in our forestry sector. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's fair to counties like Laois or Offaly, where we depend on employment in forestry and in Bord na Móna? And I just want to put on the record here tonight that farmer leaders and a great Taoiseach, Sean Lemass, must be turning in his grave when he, just to witness what's going on here tonight and the way you're selling out the country, selling out the people and walking on the ordinary rural people of this country. Let me tell you, Minister, this won't be forgotten. And it won't be forgotten for the wrong reasons. It won't be for a good reason, Minister. This will never be forgotten. And I would urge you to try and be constructive, because it's shameful. I've dealt with hundreds of workers. I've dealt with horticultural workers, peat harvesting workers and workers in Bord na Móna. And what you're doing is disgraceful. These are workers with bills, workers with mortgages, and the fact that you can't even provide alternatives is just disgraceful. I think you should be standing up and explaining to the people of the Midlands how importing briquettes and peat makes sense. When we look at the carbon footprint created by the transportation of German briquettes or peat into this country, are you for real, Minister? What planet are you on? I just want to say you're not on planet Earth, that's for sure, and we can see that. Any practical, reasonable person with an ounce of common sense would see that you are not in the real world, and more shame that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael could allow this to happen to the people of rural Ireland. You're destroying the Midlands. Not one single job has been created. You had no alternatives. You wouldn't even define what a transition meant, and it's only mentioned once in a 7,000 document. What does that say to the people of the Midlands? What does the fact that we have the Just Transition Commissioner, or the so-called Just Transition Commissioner, being moved to another role, a second role, to sort out pay disputes on a government expert group? What does that say to the people of the Midlands? Because it's truly an insult, Minister, and this will go down in history for the very wrong reasons. And I would urge Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil TDs to come in here and cop on to themselves and serve the people that elected them, the people that put their trust in them from rural Ireland, the people from my constituency of Laois Offaly that put their faith in them and went to the polling booth to vote them in. Please stand up for those people, because this is serious. It's very serious, Minister, also, that you're happy to have a dictatorship called the Climate Advisory Committee put in place, and you're willing to legislate away the existence of Dáil Éireann having any say in what happens in the future. It's disgraceful. You are imposing this on the people. You're not bringing people with you. You're leaving communities behind. And I want to again remind you that there's no jobs created in the Midlands. Offaly will bear 53% of the brunt of the job losses. And you think that that's fair? Seriously, Minister, I don't know what planet you're on, but it certainly, as I've said to you, is not planet Earth. You need to get real here, and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael need to call a halt to this, because it's just ruining communities and good counties such as Laois and Offaly, where people have worked hard in traditional employment, and where people have made sure that, you know, there was work, there was jobs, they supported the local economy. But Minister, what you're trying to do is cripple the local economy. And that's coming across very clearly. And I'll tell you where we get that message very clear. It's on page 15 of your bill, where it says that the Advisory Council shall, insofar as practicable, maximise employment maximise employment insofar as practicable. I mean, is this for real? I actually thought it was a joke when I read it, that you are not prepared to prioritise employment, and that Fianna Fáil are prepared to let you away with putting in something like that into a bill. And as I said, I mentioned Sean Lamass here, a great man, a fantastic man, who got semi-state companies up and running. No way should this be happening in the absence of alternatives. You are going to plunge lower income families into poverty. There will be fuel poverty. There's no alternatives. We're seeing German briquettes in our shops in Offaly. It makes no sense what you've done. It really doesn't. And in fact, Minister, you've actually put off a lot of people who were climate change activists and who were active on the environment. They've actually gone the other way, in disgust and in disillusionment. And I know that for a fact because I'm in contact with a lot of young people who were very active and very enthusiastic about the climate change agenda. Well, Minister, this makes no sense, and I think anyone with an ounce of cop on would see it makes no sense. It's doomed to failure, and yes, it will go down in history, Minister, for the very wrong reasons. And so will this government, this sham of a government propped up by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael TDs who come from rural Ireland. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves.